Good morning and welcome. It is 10 o'clock. It is the 4th day of September 2021, opening weekend for Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights in Orlando, Florida. And soon Halloween will be upon us here as well. And this vlog has absolutely nothing to do with that topic. Hello, I am your grumpy guide to all things gaming. And what do we think about the announcements that multimedia is now dipping its toes into the role-playing game market to create television shows based upon RPGs? We know that The Witcher already exists, and now we've heard, and of course there's Altered Carbon, which is sort of a weird mixture of, was it based upon a game that was based upon a movie that was based upon a book, and then we also have, The Expanse, which is what's based upon a game that became a book that became the TV show that is now going to become a game. But we've also heard that we are now going to be getting, sometime very soon, a television show on one of the channels based upon the Exalted RPG IP, and on a separate one based upon the Blades in the Dark RPG. And now there's also been an announcement of a Wheel of Time fantasy show that should be on Amazon soon to compete with The Witcher. Amazon, of course, is also doing the very controversial Lord of the Rings show coming up. So what do we think about this? Okay, well, for those of you who don't know, Blades in the Dark is a award-winning tabletop role-playing game about a crew of daring scoundrels sinking their fortunes on the haunted streets of an industrial fantasy city. There are heists, chases, occult mysteries, dangerous bargains, bloody skirmishes, and above all, riches to be had if you're bold enough to seize them. So, procedural police show, except it's you're playing the criminals instead of the police. And then every week of the game, you do scoundrelly type stuff across the rooftops of this steampunk type medieval industrial city. That's the best way to explain Blades in the Dark. Okay, we also have, if you have heard me mention it before, because a lot of people have hacked the Blades in the Dark system for making their own games using the system called Forged in the Dark, including Scub and Villainy, Band of Blades, Girl by Moonlight. Several other games have used this system to make games. Exalted is a role-playing game that was originally published by White Wolf Publishing. It's classified as high fantasy and was inspired by mythology and Japanese anime. It's currently in its 3rd edition. So big sword Japanese anime type fantasy. It was White Wolf's attempt to take the storytelling system into the D&D type world, but embrace the fascination with anime that was around at the time when it was first being made. So both of those are going to be made into TV shows, including, and plus The Wheel of Time, the never-ending book series by Robert Jordan, is also going to be made into a TV type thing online. These are all, of course, direct to cable type TV shows. So you won't see them on channel CBS or Fox. You'll see them on Netflix or HBO or Amazon or Peacock or Vivo, TiVo, Mobo, Pobo, or whatever the other ones are called. None of these will be, stuff. One of them, I'm sure CW will be doing one, because the CW also dips their fingers into that. Would Blades in the Dark make a good procedural IP show that you would watch if it was a Netflix thing? Or, a DC thing or an Amazon thing? Would that be something we're interested, where the Blades in the Dark idea is converted into a show where every week we see a bunch of, multi-race, multi-gender, politically correct fantasy trope characters pulling off crimes and trying to uncover mysteries and stay one step ahead of the good guys. So basically leverage, but fantasy, and a lot more hopping across steam-covered rooftops. Is there a market for that? Considering how badly Carnival Row did, I don't know. What about Exalted? Is there a market for Exalted, a live-action, heavily CGI, obviously, heavily anime-influenced show that you would watch on Amazon or HBO? So, every episode would be, guy with big sword and stuff, and they're fighting fantasy monsters and doing vaguely Dungeon and Dragon-y type adventures, but set in a much more over-the-top, anime-inspired, high fantasy world type thing. So Witcher / Game of Thrones, but with a lot more CGI, a lot less dark, a lot more over the top. That one might work because we do know that there's a market for fantasy on the old computer, TV, video thingy. But maybe everybody's getting tired of the whole dark, Witcher, everything's dark kind of, Game of Thrones thing. I might want to see something a little bit more high action, high adventure, high fantasy, over the top ridiculousness that you would get over a live action Exalted type show. That one is, I give that one a 60% chance of actually being cool. Blades in the Dark, I'm going 50-50. We know there's a market. We know that everybody loves that sort of, or a lot of people love that industrial fantasy Carnival Row, but Carnival Row didn't do very well despite everything that, and Carnival Row hit all the buttons but just didn't do very well. Neither did the Nevers, and generally that the Victorian fantasy shows have not done well. But it is, something that people might. The market's there. We know the market's there. We know it's stuff that people want, but just for some reason the shows that have tried to tap that market really haven't done as well as they could. Now, moving on to Wheel of Time. How do you take the huge library that is Wheel of Time and turn it into a show? Every book is a season, I guess, but each book is so unbelievably huge, and the series is so many books, and it's still never going to be finished. I suppose you'd have to follow the same pattern that Game of Thrones did, and loosely based upon the books, but then just sort of run with it. But then there's also a huge catalog of characters in Wheel of Time, because Wheel of Time takes over multiple generations, multiple places in the world, multiple stuff going on. It's not just, Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. Hey, let's go have an adventure, come back. I mean, you could, I guess, every season be sort of based upon one or two of the books, and you just sort of cherry pick. But yeah, look how badly Game of Thrones did. I mean, you started out strong, it kept steadily strong, and then towards the end, it crashed badly. So again, is that a market? I mean, it's like, it's a market. The market is there, but we also know generally when shows like this are made for whether it be the CW or Fox or Amazon, most of them don't do well enough, unless they really hook that core fan-based demographic, the show will probably flounder. I mean, the only reason the Expanse got picked up is because Amazon, ran with it when it wasn't doing well on the other channel, Sci-Fi, and then it's sort of floundered on Amazon, and now Amazon's like, okay, the next season's going to be the last because, it's a lot of money to make these shows, and if we don't see the revenue returned, and it's a story that needs to be finished, but yeah, that's it, God love him, Stravinsky knew what he was doing when he did Babylon 5. He was like, I've got a definite beginning, definite middle, definite end. This is how many seasons I'm going to need. As long as you let me tell my story over this many seasons, I promise you it will work. And despite issues, it did. It did work. Babylon 5 had a beginning, middle, end. It did exactly what Stravinsky wanted it to do because he understood the rises and falls of series television. And that was main TV, that was on Channel 13 where I lived, or Fox or something. Now, Altered Carbon has worked. It is pretty popular, but it's a very easy to understand world, and it's got a very simple stories and, enough good looking people and attractive characters. Expanse has a good fan base, but a lot of the Expanse is just politics and blah, 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 and I'm going to manipulate you, and am I the bad guy and the good guy, but, and stuff like that. But, Supernatural worked for 17 some odd billion seasons because it had a very simple, easy to understand, cyclical story that it could tell and still, have a progression of the characters in the world. So would a Blades in the Dark work, and would Exalted work? Remember also that these shows are going to be very expensive to make, especially Exalted with the effects. And based upon the stuff that we've seen before, who knows? The name branding of Wheel of Time for TV show will at least get some initial, obviously, but if it doesn't knock it out of the park, the interest is going to wane because it's just so long. Exalted has got to be visually attractive enough to catch people in the very beginning and keep them interested without just resulting, falling back on the tried and true, let's use sex to explain what's going on every time it gets too complicated, which obviously has worked for Rome, Spartacus, and Game of Thrones. As for Blades in the Dark, considering it's basically stuff we've already seen, i.e. Carnival Row and the Nevers, we know there's a built-in audience, but also all those shows have not done very well. Industrial Magic World does okay, but it never really knocks it out of the park the way, Game of Thrones does. So, and it's not a recognizable name the way Game of Thrones was. So that'll be interesting. It's also interesting that having run out of comic books and fantasy and science fiction novels, they are now going after video games. Of course, there was always the running joke, that when they ran out of role-playing games and video games to milk for TV and movies, we would eventually see Tetris and Pong, the movie, because, we had Battleship and all those other movies based upon video games, and we have seen movies based upon RPGs before and TV shows based upon RPGs before. They generally don't do well. So, how will a Blades in the Dark, Exalted, and Wheel of Time do? Only the fickle nature of TV fans will tell. Of the three, Exalted might work. Though Exalted is going to be expensive, but who knows? I don't know. I mean, did The Witcher win? I mean, I don't know if it did The Witcher do well when it was on Netflix. It doesn't feel like it did because it was so confusing. and you really had to understand, you really had to have seen the show, I mean, the video game, or read the books to understand that, the timeline and the whole weirdness of The Witcher, not giving any spoilers. So I don't know. What do you think? Is there a role-playing game you'd like to see turned into a TV show / movie that hasn't been done yet? And can it be done well? Let me know what you think. I'm your grumpy guide to all things gaming, the OGGM. That's sort of the news for today. If you have anything you want to talk about, comment down below. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Help me hit 1,000 subs. Till next time, stay awesome, stay safe, stay spooky, and stay off my land.